Carolina, Tampa Bay, compared to the other games going on this weekend, not a bad matchup at all, but the number is out there. We are at 8. Tampa laying 8 at home, Sam. And you mentioned in week 13 when this game was pushed to overtime how Tampa Bay ran all over them. You're spot on. I mean, Irving had 152. White had 76 rushing yards. Mike Evans had a big game. What I find interesting about this and why the Panthers +8 is tempting to me is Bryce Young. We did see a bounce-back performance last week. He had that 4-turnover game, and then, boom, he bounces back, 3 touchdowns, one of them coming on the ground. And believe it or not, Baker has bad history against Carolina. This is not a good Panthers defense, but in the past year, he's played them 3 times since last December. In those 3 games, Baker's averaged 191 passing yards, and he's had 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So this 8, that's a pretty big number for me. I want to see what's happening with the injuries. Chuba Hubbard limited, Thielen limited, Leggett limited, Tremble limited, who had a big game against Tampa before. But I am certainly tempted by this +8 in a divisional matchup.
There's a nice range in the game for sure. One book has -7.5 right here in the States. There's a couple shops offshore that are at Tampa -9. Most books at 8. MGM is at 8. A lot of 8 in Vegas. Pinnacle 8.5. So books are taking stances on the game. Notice they're all north of a touchdown. I know Carolina's been really good in this dog roll, and they had another outright win last week. I would go Tampa or pass. I don't think Carolina can stop the run. Bucky Irving was an animal in the last meeting, an absolute animal on the ground. They couldn't stop the run. Baker just had a couple really bad interceptions. That's always the great equalizer, the turnover, the fumble, the interception, the botched punt, whatever. That could change any game. Tampa's playing really well. You're paying a Tampa tax. I would lay that 7.5, though. If you have the ability to lay 7.5, I would do that. A lot of places at 8, some 8.5, some 9. I'd lay the best of it with Tampa.
Considering Carolina, not sure if I'm going to get there. I might be forced to get there with this card, picking 5 games in some of the contests that we're all in. And we'll see what we end up with our contest plays during Lightning Bets. All right, Sunday Night Football. This one was flexed in. We've got the Falcons at the Commanders. Potential weather game with rain. They're saying rain's likely. It could be heavy rain on Sunday night. The Commanders are laying 4 at home. So Washington clinches a playoff berth with a win or a Tampa Bay loss. Atlanta clinches the division with a win and a Tampa Bay loss, coming off the game we were just discussing. So it could be an interesting wrinkle once we get to Sunday night. Michael Penix making his 2nd start. Pretty good last week. They steamrolled the Giants 34-7, but there were a couple of pick sixes by the defense. Bijan, it was a Bijan game. Heavy Bijan stuff. And, the Commanders win their game over the Eagles, even though they still had 5 turnovers in the game. But Jaden Daniels, terrific. He had a couple picks, but made up for it with 5 touchdowns and 81 rushing yards. Drake London has been getting limited practices in. It sounds like they expect him to play in this one. Marshawn Lattimore will not for the Commanders. Not practicing De'Ami Brown, the wide receiver, and the right tackle in Wiley. What do you think about Washington laying 4 here?
So there's a lot of respect for Penix at this number. This is his first ever start on the road going into Washington. Washington had an amazing win over the weekend, beats Philly. Late heroics from Daniels, throws the touchdown pass late at the end to, I believe, Jamison Crowder. Didn't even know he was still churning butter in the NFL, let alone catching touchdown passes. But you're seeing a number that's sitting mostly 4. Now, some places are off the 4, a couple 3.5s. I like the over. I do. I think we get points. Open 46, now 47.5. I think anything shy of 48 is a really good bet. Penix keeps these teams honest a lot more than Cousins did, because remember, at the end of the Cousins thing, whatever that was, He was banged up. He couldn't throw the ball down the field. I'm not saying that Penix is going to come out and throw 3 touchdowns, but Penix's ability to keep defenses honest has to be accounted for. He can throw that ball, and he can hum that thing down the field, which makes it tougher to stack the box. So from an aesthetic standpoint, I think you're in a position where you get, a lot more versatility from the Atlanta offense. Now, can they execute? Can they turn field goals into touchdowns? That's the great problem in Atlanta. We get inside the 10, inside the 5. Can we score touchdowns and not kick field goals? I also know that Koo is on the shelf.
Yes.
Their kicker in Atlanta.
Yep.
So maybe that makes them more aggressive on 4th and 3, 4th and 4. We'll see. I think we get points. I like that over 47.5. I do.
So last week when we talked about the Falcons going to Penix, at least what I refused to believe was that Penix was a downgrade from Kirk Cousins. The market was telling us that he was a downgrade, but I couldn't believe that. And I still think that's the case. So you're right. There is some respect here for Michael Penix, and I think there should be. I worry about the first road game. That is always a very difficult spot for rookie quarterbacks. So Caleb lost his first road game, scored 13 points at Houston. Bo Nix lost first road game by a touchdown at Pittsburgh. Jaden Daniels lost first road game by 17 at Tampa Bay. And then the one that doesn't make any sense, Drake May wins his first road game at Cincinnati to start his career in week number 1. That was a 16-10 ball game. Those are always tough spots, but let's not act like the Commanders have this incredible home field. Maybe this year's a little bit more different because fans are actually excited about the team and happy to be there. But I do hesitate on that. I lean Atlanta in this one, getting 4 points, but it looks like we're dealing with a completely healthy Jaden Daniels now. With how much he's running and everything he's doing on the field, the idea of points that you have with the over, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm going over 47.5. I might bet that during the break.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good look, and there's a reason it is north of that key number of 47. Like that look for sure. And this is the best game of the weekend. There's no doubt about it. We've got the Packers and the Vikings. Packers are a 1-point favorite on the road, total 48.5. Both teams have already clinched their playoff berth, but Minnesota can still get the 1. They have to win out. You beat the Packers, you beat the Lions, it's right there for you. Darnold looked good again last week, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions against Seattle. Jefferson certainly involved. It is a short week for Green Bay, but is it really? How much did they have to prepare when they beat down the Saints? First shutout of the entire season this year. First one going against New Orleans on Monday Night Football. So I don't know that it's your traditional short week. When these two teams played in week 4, Minnesota went up 28-0, and they barely hung on, 31-29. Love posted some numbers, 389, 4 touchdowns, but the problem, he had 3 interceptions in that game. So high-scoring affair there back in week 4. Total is 48.5. Man, I agree with what the market is saying. The market is telling us that these teams are so damn close. Go ahead.
Equal. Basically equal.
Call.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. On a neutral field, it's equal. And I actually just had this story posted on Fox. I talked with Andy Molitor about the story and a couple bookmakers. And here's a quote from one of the bookmakers. As of now, we'll need the Vikings to win. That means Green Bay will probably get the money. He says, that's just the way it's gone for us this season. Body blow after body blow. We'll definitely need it to stay under 48, too.
Ooh.
So lots of over money, as you can probably understand rather easily. Packers have some issues in the secondary. Packers also have the weapons to put a lot of those Viking guys in man coverage. Like Harrison Smith in man coverage, not as good as he is in the zone. So a lot of these offensive advantages have me leaning over, as square as that might be. The total is now 48.5 So the bookmaker saying we hope it stays under 48 is now moving the line to 48.5. So a lot of over money, and the books actually need the 13-2 home team that's a dog in its own building. What a wild time to be alive.
Wow. Yeah. There's motivation on both sides. These teams also hate each other. There's that. Minnesota's great at home. I don't know. I get the sense that people want to feel strongly on this game because, as we've been discussing, it's not a good card. There's not a lot of games to get excited about. This is maybe the one, maybe the Sunday Night Football game. There are a couple of games to get excited about, and I think people are going to want to have action on it. So they're talking themselves into either side. I think the betting market is right. Like, these teams are so damn close. So damn close. I mean, I would lean Minnesota if I'm forced to make a play, but I don't expect to have either of these teams in my contest place because I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the game. I don't think there's some great betting angle. Do you?
No, you're gambling. You're flipping a coin, but I like Minnesota in that building. They are insanely motivated, and not the team, the fan. I'm telling you, that place is going to be as drunk as it gets. That is the afternoon game. They're going to have that horn out with the vodka and the horn at 9 in the morning. That place is going to be bananas. And you won't be able to hear yourself think on 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. So Jordan Love better be ready for the Death Star in Minnesota.